Jonathan Davis, of course, joins us as well. He's a financial whiz from the Three Counties. Jonathan, always looking trim, lean and ready for business.
Well, I don't know about lean. I haven't been playing tennis over the winter very much, so I'm trying to get back to lean.
And Dr. Peter Warburton is, from Economic Perspectives in Dunstable, a proper bona fide economist.
Yeah, afraid so. We're hide out in Dunstable. We try and tackle the big picture and try and explain what it means for regular businesses and people who are managing money.
Let's try and unravel what's happening in the stock markets today. They're taking a huge hit in the aftermath of the earthquake and tsunami in Japan. The Bank of Japan has pumped billions of pounds into their economy. Should we be worried?
I think we should be worried in the extent that clearly this has a nuclear dimension, and potentially this could become a bigger stock market event. Obviously, it's a huge human tragedy. There's no question about that, and that's what we should focus on. But Britain's not particularly exposed to Japan as an economy. In fact, we actually benefit more from the direct investment that they put into our businesses here than in terms of our regular trade.
Because to put into some sort of perspective, the Japanese economy is what, bigger than the German and the British economy combined. It's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the second biggest economy until China just overtook it just very, very recently.
What concerns me about this is this morning I was watching the breakfast news. They're doing the economic predictions for the day in the stock markets. And looking at British insurance companies, everything was in the red. The prices were just falling. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, that does have an impact on us here.
I would suggest that the calamity in Japan, as Peter says, is not going to have a direct negative effect on our economy, but I would say that the hit to the Japanese economy is yet another nail in the coffin for the global economy. I don't actually believe that the stock market is falling hard just now because of what's happening in Japan. I think the market needed to pull back anyway, because since January, maybe even December, it's been massively overbought. It's way beyond, it's way out of kilter with reality. So I think that what we're going to see in pension funds and ISAs is quite a substantial hit to funds over the spring and summer, and it won't really be directly because of Japan, although it certainly won't help.
And how will that affect us? Because most people think, well, it's a look at the bigger picture. It affects the top end of the market. It doesn't affect us here in the Three Counties.
Well, it does in the sense that most people have a pension fund. Many people have stocks and shares ISAs, in other words, investments. And as I say, although I don't believe the Japanese thing is going to directly affect our economy, because it's going to massively negatively affect the Japanese economy, that in itself is going to impinge on the global economy. So we will be indirectly affected, all of us.
What I would chip in here is that obviously there's an action, but there's also a reaction, and we have to take that into account. For the last 3 years now, governments and central banks around the world have been so frightened by the potential for things going wrong and melting down that they've been very eager to step in and help. And normally you'd think of Japan as being one of the slowest places to react, but actually their central bank, the Bank of Japan, piled straight in with some very big support measures. And
is that real money, Peter? I don't know about you then. I was watching the news and they're talking about billions and billions of pounds, which is trillions of yen. I'm thinking, does somebody literally go from the bank with a big a big armoured vehicle and take it somewhere, or is it electronic money?
Oh, it's electronic, but it's no less real for that, and I think it will help to stabilise their financial system. I think were it not for the nuclear dimension, probably the financial markets would already be bouncing and rallying. But I think the uncertainty and possibly the poor communication around the nuclear threat is why we are down quite so much.
No, I think, Roberto, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's not real money. It's just more debt that Japan has borrowed. They're already at a stage where they borrowed 200% of their GDP. every country has borrowed beyond belief. We're seeing countries in Europe going bankrupt. We're seeing despots in the Middle East being toppled because the state of the global economy is absolutely dire. And it's all very well Peter saying, and fund managers generally saying, oh, it's not a problem because governments will stand in and put in some money and stabilise. What they're doing is borrowing money in our name, so we have to pay it back over years and years.
Are you telling me that me and Danielle have to pay this all back by ourselves?
I'm saying that that's the reason why, because of the massive borrowing that the previous government did in 2009, that's the reason why our public sector is being hammered now. That's the reason why taxes are going up. That's the reason why unemployment is going up. That's the reason why inflation is going up, because currency was hammered. Yes, absolutely, we're all paying for it. And I'm sorry, as I said last time here, we will be paying for it for years and years. The stock market is not the real economy. It's all very well the stock market goes up 100%, which it did in the last 2 years, but tell that to the hundreds of thousands who were thrown out of their jobs, and tell that to the hundreds of thousands who in the future, I'm afraid to say, are going to lose their homes.
We'll talk about all these subjects and more. Danielle, in the real world, not the high finance world, in the real world, has business been good for you?
Yes, it has. I mean, we were having a conversation outside earlier, Jonathan and I was saying that the good thing about my business is that some of the people that I train have to do this by law. It's part of their compulsory requirements for their businesses. So I can go and provide them with the 12-hour paediatric courses that they have to have. Where I have been seeing a decline is where parents, can do this training off their own back. That's gone down a bit, and I think that's because of the fact that, like you were saying, people are having to, pull in the pennies, and if they can save money somewhere, then it's better to do it somewhere where you have to volunteer the money, if that makes any sense. They don't have to do this training. So
we're going to talk about redundancies. We'll talk about industrial espionage, a case that's afflicting Renault of France. We'll talk about mortgages. The number of people who have missed a payment has increased. We'll talk about that. But I want to come back to the global economic situation because Jonathan, you're very much doom and gloom, and I appreciate that. You're painting a real picture, and I guess, Peter, you're going to tell me that the situation is perhaps not that bad.
Well, the difficult thing, I agree with Jonathan to the degree that how might things be if there were no support, if there were no packages, and accepting that it can't go on. But the point is that as long as we have these incredibly low interest rates around the world, as long as banks are being allowed to rebuild their shattered finances, as long as this particular music is playing, things are getting better.
I stay there. We're going to come back. These two are going to take off, Danielle.
Yeah.
You're going to have to step in and referee.